Is the Mind Flayer in Stranger Things, in fact, an elder brain? That is, a more evolved and therefore more powerful version of a Mind Flayer. And why does asking this question matter? Well, in this video, where I'll be talking a lot about Mind Flayers and elder brains and how they relate to Stranger Things, I will actually put it to you that the Stranger Things Mind Flayer is in fact an elder brain. And that would actually explain why Conformity Gate makes a lot of sense, why us Conformity Gators believe that part of season 5 or all of season 5 actually takes place in an illusory reality created by Vecna and the Mind Flayer. I personally, by now, probably I believe that all of season 5 takes place in this illusory reality. But firstly, I want to call attention to my previous video where I talked a lot about what the grand design of the Mind Flayer or elder brain and Vecna could be, and I encourage you to check that video out. I'm not going to repeat everything that I said in that video here, but just as a like a quick recap, I do believe that ultimately what the Mind Flayer slash elder brain and Vecna want is to merge humanity into the hive mind. That is their ultimate goal, and thus to essentially bring humanity under control. They want to colonize humans physically and psychologically. You can check out my previous video for more context on this, or freeze the screen right now and just read this slide. I'm not going to go into detail here again about the grand design specifically, but that could be interesting for you as a context for today's video. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about Mind Flayers and elder brains, because ultimately, obviously, they relate to each other in the sense that elder brains sort of evolve out of Mind Flayers. And then I'm going to talk about Mind Flayer powers and capabilities, as well as elder brain powers and abilities. Because once we understand the D&D versions of Mind Flayers and Elder Brains, we begin to see a lot of parallels with Stranger Things. And as I will show you, there is actually a lot of evidence that what we consider the Mind Flayer in Stranger Things is in fact an Elder Brain. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about how Mind Flayers, that is illithid, as they are also called in D&D, relate to elder brains. Well, essentially, they are beings that sort of share a life cycle in the sense that Mind Flayers eventually turn into elder brains at the end of their life cycle. So how does this work? The way it works is that usually Mind Flayers are born of a process called seramorphosis. This means that essentially the Mind Flayer and or the elder brain implant a tadpole or a polybog into a humanoid, which then takes over the humanoid's brain, devouring it and transforming the body into a new illithid, that is a new Mind Flayer. And then this Mind Flayer lives for a very long time, but eventually when it nears the end of its life cycle, it breaks down and it merges its brain with the elder brain, giving up its individuality to strengthen the collective. So essentially they merge into the hive mind, and this is the ultimate dream of the illithid, to become one with this hive mind and to share in this consciousness that spans across space and time. We already talked about this in the previous video. But I think what's important to mention here is that we do see that the Stranger Things creators were very much inspired by this idea of seramorphosis. If you think about Will at the end of season 1, and when he essentially coughs up this sort of slug thingy, which essentially I think it develops from a tadpole. It's kind of like a tadpole that was implanted into him by Vecna slash the MF slash the elder brain. And when I first saw this scene, I was like, oh, it's sort of like an alien. Like Will is a sort of monster incubator, and he was used to essentially create a new monster, a new Demogorgon or Demodog or whatever. And that may be part of it, but Essentially, if we think about D&D, in D&D, these tadpoles are used to change the neurology and the physiology of a humanoid when the tadpole is implanted into that humanoid. And I do believe that this is how the tadpole is used in Stranger Things as well. Because once this tadpole is in Will, it affects his physical and sort of like neurological makeup, so that he becomes connected to the upside down. Like suddenly he can be pulled back, right, when Vecna or when the Mind Flayers so wish. For example, when he goes to the bathroom in the middle of the night and then suddenly he goes outside and there the Mind Flayer is, and then yeah, so it's essentially this tadpole. I think it creates changes in him, like maybe like these are like biophysical, biochemical changes that connect him to the upside down. So that's just an interesting piece of information in terms of like how the Mind Flayer and Vecna are sort of already experimenting on Will in terms of changing his physical and neurological makeup. And then, of course, these tadpoles I think are used in season 3 as well to flay the flayed, right? We see the MF. I'm just going to call the Mind Flayer MF for the sake of shortening its name. So the MF slash Elderbrain, they flay humans in season 3 by essentially injecting some sort of a liquid into their mouth. And I think that probably there are tadpoles in there. It's similar probably to what they did with Will. And of course, the goal is to flay, to enslave, to merge into the hive mind. And then, of course, as I told you before in my previous video, usually Mind Flayers and other brains, or MFs and other brains, they consider humanoids slave labor a lot of the times, and this is what happens in season 3 as well. So first humans are flayed, and then they are just instructed to disintegrate, and they merge into this fleshy monster. But what is very important right now, of course, is to look at Mind Flayer powers and abilities. And then I will look at how these manifest in Stranger Things. And then I will also compare these powers and abilities with other brain powers and abilities. All right, so first let's just quickly go through what Mind Flayers can do in D&D specifically. So Mind Flayers can stun foes, then they attach their tentacles to the head of their prey, and then they suck out their brain, the victim's brain. They can levitate at will, they can detect thoughts of nearby creatures, they can dominate and charm creatures in the vicinity. They can do plane shifting, that is travel to or send someone else to a different plane of existence. They have powers of suggestion, that is they can influence, they can implant thoughts, etc. Into other beings, and they have telekinesis, of course. They can also devour the brain of humanoids, and along with the brain, they devour the humanoids' memories, personality, innermost fears, etc. They can also create illusions, that is silent. That is this sort of like silent image phantasmal force capability or ability in D&D. And they can do scrying, that is viewing a subject at great distance and possibly across planes of existence. And quite frankly, most of these things. Stranger Things, the Stranger Things MF slash Elderbrain and Vecna, who derives his he derives his powers, of course, from the MF slash Elderbrain. So of course he can do these things too, for the most part, right? Like we see Vecna, for example, levitate others when they are in trance or at will whenever he wants to. He can definitely perform telekinesis. We also see him being able to create illusions, like when he sort of creates this illusion for Billy when Billy sees himself, instructing himself to do something for the MF Elderbrain and Vecna. And of course, we see it as well when he is putting others in a trance and creating already sort of like entire illusory scenes in their minds, right? He can also use Mind Blast. That's an ability in D&D, a Mind Blast ability to stun foes. That sort of translates in Stranger Things into Vecna's ability to put people in a trance where they are completely immobilized, where they are paralyzed. And this is something that, mind you, Vecna, when he was still Henry, he talked about this to Al in the lab, right? When they have that sort of like showdown, that he admires spiders because they paralyze and feed on the weak. This is something I'm pretty sure that Vecna very much enjoys. And this is what he does with his trances. He paralyzes, he actually stuns his foes. And then, of course, in Stranger Things, we don't have mind flayers with heads with tentacles protruding out from the head, but we do have Vecna being able to use one of his hands to actually suck the brain out of people, or rather it would be more accurate to say to suck the life out of them, their memories, their emotions, their fears. And we know he can do that. Like he does this to 11 in season 4. Like don't feel sorry for them. Like they're not gone 11. They're still with me in here in my mind, right? So that's another mind flayer ability, of course, that Vecna has. Unsurprisingly, he can also detect the thoughts of nearby creatures, and he can do scrying, viewing subjects at a great distance. And we see him do this when he is connected through the vines in the attic to um, the rest of the upside down. I actually have no idea what he's connected to here. It's very interesting, but I guess it's to the elder brain, the MF somehow. But anyways, he is able to then sort of do a kind of plane shifting where in his mind he is actually sort of like traveling around right side up Hawkins and spying on the thoughts, the very thoughts and the very experiences of people up there. Right? Like he can hear thoughts, like in this scene where he's crying, like one of the girls, she's thinking like, can I say no? I can say no, he'll leave me. This is something that she definitely only thinks, but this is very terrifying. Vecna has access to her thoughts, right? To everyone's thoughts in Hawkins. And then, of course, this is how he chooses his victims as well. Like one of his victims is chosen in this scene. Someone who's being reprimanded or told off, I think, by his father. It's one of the guys who actually dies, of course, in season 4. Now, the thing is, of course, Vecna can also dominate creatures, make them do what he wants them to do. But here's the thing, Vecna and what we have so far called the Mind Flayer, they can do many more things, actually. There are powers and abilities that they manifest. And also L, who of course has a lot of the powers of the MF/Other Brain. And these powers, these abilities that they exhibit, they are very much the powers and abilities of an elder brain. Okay, so let's talk about this for a moment, right? Like, is this really the Mind Flayer, or is it something more powerful? So, why is this a consequential question? Firstly, I want to highlight that elder brains were introduced in D&D in 1989, according to my research. And this means that, of course, our party often use D&D and the D&D monster guide to understand the enemy that they face, right? Like that's they're using analogies. That is their frame of reference. But I put it to you that since they believe that they're facing a villain, kind of like a mind flayer, they actually do not understand what they are up against. From season 2 onwards, they do not understand what a formidable foe they could be facing. In D&D, there were no elder brains until 1989, so they wouldn't know that there is a more powerful version of an elder brain. or a Mind Flayer, they wouldn't know what to expect from it either. So they wouldn't know, for example, that it can trap them in an illusory reality, and then what they should do to escape this reality once they are trapped. They wouldn't know how to defeat it. And mind you, physical destruction won't do it. Like all that crap about them just thinking that they defeat that CGI monster in season 5, it's complete BS. There's like other brains are extremely intelligent creatures. You cannot defeat them just by, like defeating, supposedly defeating a physical manifestation of it, like in season 3, right? Like, and closing gates won't do it either. Gates can be reopened, and anyways, more on that later on. But I want to talk about the fact that there are already plenty of clues in season 4, especially, that the evil lurking in Hawkins is not fully comprehended by anyone. That it is not just a mind flayer. Like, that's what's being, like sort of implied, very heavily implied by a couple of things that are being done and said in season 4, especially. And I want to call your attention to what Owen says in season 4, episode 3, when he says, something is going on in that town, that is in Hawkins, that nobody fully comprehends. And I also understand that military strength is not the answer. So this is the Stranger Things creators telling us that whatever we have learned about the MF so far, about Vecna, we do not get it either, like how powerful it can be. And later on, actually, Papa says to Al, I think it's in, I'm gonna have to check, it's in season 4, like episode 5 or 6. But he says to Al, your friends are not prepared for this fight, apologies. So again, your friends are not prepared for this fight 11, and neither are you. You must know, when one kills, he doesn't simply kill. He consumes. He takes everything from his victims, everything that they are and everything that they ever will be, their memories, their abilities. And we do not know where he's been all these years. To underestimate him, to act rashly, would be very dangerous. And mind you, Papa does tell Eleven when Eleven decides eventually to leave for Hawkins to go and help her friends. Do not go yet. Finish the Nina project. You are not ready yet. And as much as an evil bastard Papa is, I do not necessarily think he's lying. Because if us conformity gators are right, that all of season 5 is, it's our party being trapped, Hawkins being trapped in an illusory reality, and who knows what is happening to their actual bodies in the actual real world, it's all very terrifying. And neither us, the audience, nor the party, nor anyone in Hawkins could have predicted how dangerous a foe Vecna is, and how dangerous a cosmic evil the MF/Other Brain is. So that's like, I think Papa is telling the truth to 11. And mind you, I did ask Matthew Modine on Instagram, like he interacts a lot with fans, or maybe someone else is handling his social account, I don't know. But on Instagram, I did ask him, like, Papa, you told the truth when you said that, when you said to 11 that neither she nor her friends were ready for what was awaiting them in Hawkins. And then he liked my comment but didn't answer. So I was a little bit sad about that. But he liked my comment. So I was like, maybe, that's sort of like a yes. But anyways, so actually, I think I'm gonna leave the sort of like the discussion about the Elder Brain for the next video, so that we have more videos that are shorter, and then you can watch them at your convenience. So yeah, so in the next video, I'm going to be talking more about the Elder Brain, why it's actually, I think, a genius move that the Duffers and the Stranger Things creators actually brought this villain into play. I think they did, but yeah, just go to my next video and see, like, I will be providing quite a lot of clues that we're dealing with an Elder Brain in Stranger Things, and why that is very consequential. All right, well, I guess see you there.